This will be different. I um I run into obsessions with plays every now and again. I just fall in love with one, with a Shakespeare. It's generally a Shakespeare. And this right now it's Henry V. For a while it was Coriolanus, and I think I know why. I think that creatures I'm fascinated with, mythological prototypes, I guess, would be Achilles and Alexander. Alexander is created by Mary Renault, particularly. And it's fun, those things, what people say today about who or what Alexander was, or who and what Achilles was. Well, we know Alexander existed. We don't know that Achilles existed, and one influenced the other quite a bit. But anyway, Henry V seems to me to be a study on the personality of Alexander, and Coriolanus seemed to me to be a study on Achilles. I have no idea if this is the case. There are mentions in both plays. There's a description of one of the soldiers in before Agincourt, where one of the soldiers describes him. I think it's then describes Henry V in Alexandrian terms. Anyway, doesn't matter. So I got obsessed with it. Well, it's not obsession. I got very, very intrigued by the speeches, the great speeches. Once More into the Breach, and upon the King, I'm working on right now. And then I thought, well, I'll go back and look at it, because I also love the notion of the chorus. And the chorus, I got several versions of it, but I think there's something interesting about his stage manager type personality, sort of elder. You know what I mean? And he seems to, in my mind, he's in the wooden O, the cockpit, or whatever you want to call it, the globe, I suppose. Maybe on coming down onto the stage from some elevated spot and complaining about, that they don't have a muse of fire. Anyway, and then so slowly moving into his the spell of Henry V, and how the audience needs to participate by the use of their imagination, which of course could be said as a prologue to any play ever. And it's quite marvelous. Is he blind? I wonder sometimes. Anyway, there's any number of options about that character, with the goal, simply with all of this, with all of playing and all of Shakespeare particularly, of having the audience lean forward and catch every word. And if you think about it, do think about how little that happens when you go to the theater. It does occur still in the theater, certainly much more than in the movies, but rather than the acting being something that is projected at you as a sort of demonstration of what the character is feeling. So with the chorus, it would sort of be, oh, I'm just so overwhelmed with this thing, and we don't have a muse of fire, we don't have princes to act or monarchs to behold the swelling scene. It's just all so awful. What is it that anybody says in any part of your life that somebody says, come here, listen, I saw this thing today. The raconteur in the pub was always a good model for the Shakespearean actor. Anyway, so he does, or she does her thing, good Lord, I mean, as I'm thinking about it, these are the gender of the characters, race of the characters becomes so irrelevant. Age of the characters becomes so irrelevant. If one takes it from that point of view, that I'm engaging you, I am looking at you, and I'm trying to draw you into to an act of imagination, piece out our imperfections with your thoughts. Anyway, so as on it goes, and we run next into Archbishop of Canterbury, and he comes on, and I felt this way for a long time, because he's got this famous long speech about the Salic law later on, when he needs to give a breakdown of this law Salic that the French are claiming prevents him from claiming the French crown rights in France, because the Salic law is about, let me be clear on this, it doesn't matter. So the idea is that he would inherit through a woman, through the matrilineal line. And that's his claim, that's his right. And he needs to make sure before he goes off to France that this is on his side, the law is on his side. Because if it isn't, then it's going to be a waste. It's going to be a terrible waste. So then the Archbishop of Canterbury makes this famous long speech, which I'll not attempt, but it's a famous long speech. And productions do all kinds of things with it because it's so long and because it seems to be so prissy, so that the Archbishop becomes, you have options with the Archbishop. Either you get an Archbishop type actor who does Archbishop type acting, which I suppose has some sort of effect upon the voice and the carriage of the person and the posture of the character. Or he becomes a figure of fun. I've seen that done several times. Or Henry falls asleep during the scene, which immediately is so destructive of the character of Henry. Other people in the scene might fall asleep. Henry would not. Henry would hang on every word. So now we come to this notion of, in the Act 1, which is dominated by the Archbishop, in terms of text, we have this character who comes on and everybody listens to. So the point being that this is a person that everybody listens to. Now, do they listen to them because they're obedient, because they're archbishops, because the actor is tall or old, or any number of other reasons? And I think that they listen to him because they want to. And I found this when I was watching, is it Elementary with Johnny Lee Miller? Any of the Sherlock Holmes variations, and this is not to say that the Archbishop is Sherlock Holmes, but everybody in the Sherlock Holmes world eventually turns to Sherlock and says, "What do you think?" Right? It hangs with us through the reading or the this is the resident genius. This is the resident whatever, poet, bard, something like that. And so if it becomes that, it gives the Archbishop a kind of, imagine him as Johnny Lee Miller or somebody like that, quite eccentric, or as the wonderful Jeremy Brett, quite eccentric, quite sort of in his own head. But as soon as he walks into the room, everybody goes, "Oh, shh." And in terms of making these plays, with very few exceptions, I've found, as to sit and to watch, there's a wonderful Henry V on tape right now, on video right now, the Kit Harington one. It's really marvelous because they do this thing where the other players, not the Archbishop, unfortunately, is a wonderful actor, but it's not, he doesn't go this route. they are so compelling. They are so fascinating. So if you went down the pub, you'd hear that. So Rosemary's down the pub, and you go, "Oh, she is such good value. I got to go down the pub to hear what she has to say." There's some element of that with the characters in plays generally, and in Shakespeare particularly. So you're not playing, I'm doing Archbishop acting, I'm doing acting that is about, Henry's a bit of a hothead, or Henry's this, or, I'm not a tutter, I'm not a fishwife. I have all this language, so that you've got the language that Shakespeare uses. And the audience should sit there and go, fuck, that is so amazing. Why wouldn't the other actors do that? Why wouldn't they show up in the space because so-and-so is speaking? Right? And that's actually what happens it's Max Webster, I think, is the chap who directed it, who's also done the David Tennant Macbeth, which I'm longing to see based on this thing. And I remember years and years ago being in a production of Hamlet with one wonderful production with Hilton McRae was Hamlet, and he was fantastic, and yada, 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 directed by the great Christopher Fettus. And some people from the RSC, Royal Shakespeare Company, came to see it, and they complained about how we were so fussy. We were trained a particular way, and so we were doing this acting. And we were all young, most of us young, playing all the parts, and they objected to this, and I could see them doing that because their view of the non-leads is functional. So I saw Coriolanus recently on the National Theatre at Home, which was just ghastly because I'm a soldier. So I'm doing soldier acting, or I'm Menenius, I'm doing old funny guy acting, stuff like that. And I'm the mom, so I'm doing mom acting, So that's my thought. And it works particularly with Henry because he's dangerous. And so it's how other people work on his personality. They're so dependent on him, like one would be on a king. The war leader is what he is. I don't think it needs to be in an obsequious way at all. It's not because I'm the subject and you're the king, mate. But I think that there is something much more valuable in it about people, the people, and their reliance and their need of a leader, which I'm not particularly into. I'm not particularly interested in that, which is why I think it's very good to do it on a stage. And if you're elevated, if the whole process is elevated, if the Archbishop of Canterbury to start the play has the chorus to start the play has this kind of charisma, so that one gets the sense that Henry is surrounded by the people who make him Henry V, and he would listen very, very keenly to them. And there's a wonderful bit later on, because they start complaining about this, saying, well, if you're going to go to France, you got to do something about the Scots. And of course, the last word then is given to the Archbishop of Canterbury, who says in a sort of Brutus-like fashion, and then he starts off on this metaphor of the bees. I think it is bees or ants, but I think it's bees, and how every bee has its function. The drone and the worker bee and the queen bee, they all have their different roles, and if they perform their roles properly, everything comes out well. And it's like he does it so beautifully, he speaks it so beautifully, I think, which is, that's Shakespeare, that Henry would kind of like listen to it You know what I mean? Be listening to it and go, ha ha, ho, okay, yeah, we're off. We're going to go to France. That's, yeah, that's the thing, I think. And usually when I see it, I do feel that I'm watching people who've certainly learnt the lines and they've made decisions about, what the character feels about the lines that they're saying. And they're very often, especially in these sort of manly military type plays, there's a sort of lots of soldier acting going on, lots of, let me, kind of acting. And I thought, no, there's something about to start with Canterbury. And then there's my cousin Westmoreland. Westmoreland is introduced in this scene, I think. And he's quite marvelous. He doesn't say very much, or is it? I don't know. Is it Exeter? He doesn't say very much, but it's just brilliant because you're going to go through the. Is it Westmoreland? I can't find it. But there's a character who goes through. Yeah, it is Westmoreland, and what he speaks, he doesn't say much, but he says something, and you go, "Oh my God." He's going to go through the play. And he is the one when Henry does in before Agincourt, Henry says, what's he that wishes so? My cousin Westmoreland. No, my fair cousin. And then he gets off into the great speech of St. Crispian's Day. And it's so specific that Westmoreland is that guy all the way through the play. He's got a sort of, he's a balance to Henry. Anyway, all of this stuff becomes possible. It opens up and it slows everything down for a bit. You can slow it down and speed it all up. But I'm just suggesting that that approach to the characters might create a kind of Shakespeare that I've not seen in English. I have to confess that Kit Harington one has many elements of that, like oh my God, the Llewellyn is so brilliant. The Llewellyn, because he's so distinctive, and you meet Llewellyn, you go, which you would in a real person if you'd say, listen to him. Listen to him. He's funny, and he does this, but he's such a thing, and I think that's what I feel. An application could be made to all of them, just generally.